What's up, guys, and welcome to episode 14 of Paranormal Axetivities with your host, Ben Axe. Glad to be back this week. I know I took a little break last week to get caught up on the background stuff, but it was very productive as I learned how to use the YouTube and Facebook video. So now, going forward, I'm in the process of putting all of my previous episodes in video format on those two platforms. So far, it's been pretty successful, and I'm happy that I finally figured that out. Dude, I'm seriously slow when it comes to technology. I'm only 32. You would think I was like 87. I don't know what the hell's going on. But whatever, we're back this week, and I'm glad you all joined me. We have a great show lined up for you. We have Jill Shelley, owner of the Boyd House, located in Minnesota. She is going to join the show and talk about that house, the hauntings of it, the history of it, and we'll hear some stories from her. She is from the St. Croix Paranormal. She's been an investigator for quite a while, so it's definitely an interesting conversation, and you are all going to enjoy her. But before that, first I have to say a big thanks to everythingentertainment.com for putting up my shows and dealing with my nonsense and bullshit. So big props to them. So you guys remember, tell your friends, tell your family. You can find me on everythingentertainment.com along with Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. So if anybody wants to know where to find me, all of those places can find me. And now that includes YouTube and my Facebook page. All the episodes will be there very shortly, hopefully by episode 15. Another pretty big announcement, I think I actually may have mentioned it before, but it's coming up this week. On Saturday, I'll be in my hometown of St. Mary's, Ohio. My wife and I are going to go up there and kind of scout the town and get ready for this documentary-style podcast that we're going to be doing probably in July or early August is when we're probably going to record and film everything. We're going up there on Saturday to scout it out, figure out where we want to go, how we want to do it. And also will be interviewed by the St. Mary's Town, the Evening Leader, is their local newspaper. And we're going to be interviewed by them guys and being the local paper. So that's also pretty awesome, I think. I'm excited for that. So be on the lookout for that. Once that is published, I will definitely put it on all of my social media platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, and that's all my platforms. So there you go. And again, if you guys want to email me anything, let me know how I am doing. Let me know if you have any stories, if you have any input. Email me at paranormalaxepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that is paranormalaxepodcast@gmail.com. All right, guys. Now, we have the interview with Jill Shelley coming up. But before that, it is time for this week's Paranormal Activity of the Week. Eventually, I'm going to make a soundbite for that. I just haven't yet. I mean, I'm only 14 episodes in, guys. You don't need to have all my stuff ready yet. But yep, so here we go with the latest Paranormal Activity of the Week. If you guys have been paying attention to my social media, I kind of give you a hint about it. So let's just get into the story. So it was last week, let's see here. I think it was about a week ago, actually. That's Sunday, I believe. And I woke up at 3:58 a.m., I believe is what it was. And I just happened to wake up like you do. And I kind of rolled over. And I was laying on the bed, obviously. And, my wife next to me. And I rolled over facing my wife. And as I opened my eyes, I see what appears to be, I would say like a 5 or 6 year old height, if that makes sense, but in shadow figure form. So I look over and to see like a black shadow figure standing next to the bed beside my wife. No face, no arms, just like a shadow figure. Basically, if you're looking at Ghostface, but he's the height of a 5 or 6 year old with no white face, just pure black. And Ghostface from the movie Scream is what I mean by that. So yeah, I just look over and I see a black figure at that height standing there. Again, there's no why, so I can't say it's staring at me, but it's just standing there and it feels like it's staring at us. And I look at it and it doesn't go away. And the TV is off. I always fall asleep with the TV on, but we have those power settings or whatever, so they turn themselves off after a certain amount of time. So it's dark in the room. And but my eyes were adjusting. I figured it would go away, but it did not go away. It just, as my eyes adjusted, that blur stayed there. So as the light was getting brighter around the room, as my eyes adjusted, that blur stayed the same shade of black, and it was a clear outline of a shadow figure. So I looked at it, and I was like, man, fuck this. But I was also, at the same time, a little afraid. Like, I was in a fuck it mode, but also in afraid mode, if that makes sense. And since HBO Max came out, we've been using that to go to sleep to Friends and or Big Bang Theory. And we have, and for some bullshit legal reason, my Fire Stick on Amazon does not carry the HBO Max app, and the smart TV in the bedroom is too old to download the app. So we've been using my PS4. So I moved my PS4 into the bedroom, and again, we did have 2 remotes for that, but somehow my wife, who likes to break my electronics, made that remote not work. So I don't fucking know what that's about. So I just, whatever. We've been using the one here lately. And that's how spoiled we are. Even with our TV and Fire Stick, we have 2 remotes, one on her nightstand, one on my nightstand. It's just how we always do things because we don't get along when it comes to sharing stuff. We have 2 blankets, multiple pillows apiece. We don't really share stuff. But the PS remote was on her nightstand, so I had to reach over and get it to turn the PlayStation on. I could turn the TV on with my remote, but I wasn't thinking. I don't fucking know. And so in order to do that, I had to reach over and grab the remote. But there's a little shadow figure standing there staring at me. So I'm laying there. This is so stupid, but I'm laying there, and I'm like, fuck this. So I get my leg up, and I reach over my wife with my leg and start kicking at it. So I'm literally kicking over Danae on the side of the bed, kicking over her, trying to kick that black figure to see if anything is actually there or what's going on. So I start just swinging my leg back and forth. I'm like, she's going to wake up and think I'm a fucking idiot. But I'm just swinging and swinging and swinging, and there's nothing there. And then my eyes adjust again or whatever, and there's nothing there this time. So I reach over and grab the remote and turn the TV on, and that's the end of that. Lucky for me, nothing kicked back. And even luckier, I think, nothing grabbed my leg. I was kicking it. And also, extremely lucky, I didn't kick anything. How crazy would it have been if I actually did kick and I actually impacted a kid that was standing there? That would be even crazier, as we have no kids. However, we do have that fucking creepy doll in my garage, and I have to admit, there was a second when I'm like, if that doll is standing next to this bed, I'm burning the house down. But it wasn't the doll. It wasn't a kid. I don't know if it was with my eyes messing with me. I don't know if it was a little ghost kid, a little ghost shadow kid. I have no idea if it was anything or not, but I did try to kick it. So that is my paranormal activity of the week. Hope you all enjoyed it, and I don't think I'm forgetting anything else, so let's go ahead and get Paranormal Investigator and owner of Boyd House, Jill Shelley, on the line. And before I do introduce you here, I do want to make sure that you guys know to find Jill on social media at her Facebook page, which is Boyd House LLC, or also her website at stcroix.paranormal.com. And that's St. Croix, STCROIX, paranormal.com. All right, so I think we have her on the line here, so here we go. Jill Shelley, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you, Ben?
I'm doing well. Hey, thanks a lot for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I was checking out your website at the stcroix.paranormal.com, and the Boyd House is a pretty interesting place. I'm really excited to have you on and hear about it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be here and discuss all the haunted happenings that we had at the house.
Yeah, that's awesome. So before we get started here, just kind of tell me who you are and what the Boyd House is and all of that good stuff regarding the Boyd House.
Well, I myself have been a paranormal investigator for well over 10 years with a group called St. Croix Paranormal. And then we traveled all over the country to well-known haunted locations, investigating, seeing what we could come up with for proof that there is another side. And then through all those travels, you kind of got the idea of, wouldn't it be kind of fun to have your own haunted location where you could just go and do the research when you want to, and also allow others to come in and research and learn as well. And so I was able to financially last year be in a position to find such a haunted location.
There you go.
And came across the Boyd House and purchased that and started doing a lot of paranormal research on it.
Oh, that's awesome. See, I personally just got into the actual paranormal investigation side of things not all that long ago, this year, 2020. Probably in March is when I started really getting into it. So I'm still learning how all the investigation kind of stuff works. and I've only really done anything inside my personal residence here at my house. I've never even really gone out and investigated places. So to own a haunted place and actually be able to do investigations there is really awesome.
Oh yeah, it's fun too, because I feel like the more you spend time there, the more you get to learn who they are, and I think they tend to interact with you a little bit more. I actually have had an EVP from another team member. I think it was probably maybe the second or third team that had come in, and they had actually got an EVP as they were kind of coming in, getting set up and rolling. It sounded like a man to me that said, "Where's Jill?" So I think they were just kind of wondering what the heck was going on, and were looking for me.
That's awesome. That's kind of funny you say that. My very first experience with a spirit box ever, before I even really believed in that kind of stuff, the first thing that popped up was Ben. Like, oh, crap. Somebody knows my name, apparently. So that's awesome. So where's the Boyd House located?
It's actually in Boyd, Minnesota, which is about 135 or 45 miles southwest of the Twin Cities. And we're also about like an hour from Brookings, South Dakota. So it's a really, really small town of about 150 people, kind of just plopped out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, awesome. That makes it even, that's a better environment. When you're in the middle of nowhere, you're already kind of on edge, so it makes it even better, in my opinion.
Right.
Right, awesome. So tell me a little bit about the history of the Boyd House. I know you said you bought it last year, so how many spirits are in there, do you know of, and what caused the spirits to hang out there, do you think?
Well, we're still kind of learning some of the background history of the house. We do know it was built in 1901, but our deed goes back to 1884, and then the land was kind of owned by the St. Louis-Minneapolis Railroad. And actually the first guy who was entrusted with the land committed suicide. I don't know where he committed suicide, if it was, I couldn't find it because that was back in the 1800s. So just the suicide was I found. And then a lot of the town founders of the town actually owned parts of the land, and they parceled it off until eventually it was sold to Mr. Fred Eckert, who was a town founder, and he was also one of the first owners of the house, and he was the justice of the peace, and he also owned quite a few businesses, the hardware store in town. He was the only one with a telephone back in the day, so if there was a fire, they would call him, and he would run up and ring the fire bell so the fire department could come.
Oh, wow.
And he actually passed away in the house, and we have been getting a lot of different EVPs, confirmations on a spirit box that we're getting the name Fred. So we tend to think he's still in the house. So then we know we have children in the house too. We've gotten different names, children laughing, they've been seen. And then we don't really know. I do know of 2 deaths for sure in the house, but they were natural causes. And then we also know that Fred's wife had, I believe, 4 children that passed away in infancy. Oh, and wow. I'm assuming that happened at the home.
Oh, yeah.
So we do know of some deaths at the house, but then we have a lot of names that have no correlation with anything on the deed. We get the name Henry a lot, and there's nowhere that I can find that name. So I don't know if they're just attracted because the railroad is actually just basically a hop, skip, and a jump from our property. So when the train goes by, you can actually see it. We used to be right on the edge of town. Our house is right on the edge of town. If you were thinking back in the 1900s, when this huge booming town, we're just right up from where the the train station would be. We were right, there was a livery stable across the street from us back in the day, and it's also located right on the edge of the Sioux Dakota reservation line. And I did find that they did have a bunch of them back in the 1800s freeze to death because it was so cold one year back in 1800. So there's just a lot of history back there, and just if we look at the pictures, it looks like a lot of Wild Wild West stuff.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot of deaths and shootouts and all kinds of things that, they never recorded very good stuff back then.
Oh, I'm sure. And it's interesting, too, to me that it's, by a railroad. First, like, the more I get into this kind of stuff, the more I see railroad tracks and, like, railroad towns seem to be pretty haunted from, like, back in the early 1900s. I did an episode not too long ago about the Moonville Tunnel here in Ohio. And I went there back in, it's probably been a decade now or so that I was there. But all that's left was called Moonville, and all that's left is a big train tunnel and some, like, pillars. And there's all kinds of paranormal activity going on in that location. So there's definitely something going on. Just the history there, I guess, it kind of keeps that activity going. And I know you mentioned that, there's a Henry in that spirit box that has something to do with that house. I tend to believe that if a spirit wants to communicate, it's going to go to where he can, whether he's from that house or not. So it's pretty interesting that they're all coming to you in that house. The residents and the non-residents, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of feel that, we definitely have our resident spirits that are there because a lot of times I'll get the same EVPs, and not the same EVPs, but the same voice of an EVP. And, but then other times I think, like you say, we have travelers that they, with the energy, with the tracks, and they're like, oh, somebody's running a spirit box. I got something to say, and so
Right.
they kind of get drawn to like a beacon into the home, especially with the energy that's being created at the house.
Yep, absolutely. So I know you've lived there, or you owned it for about a year now. Have you ever actually lived in the house, or do you just kind of keep up with it and do tours and that kind of stuff?
No, I don't. I don't live in the house. As much as I love paranormal investigating and stuff, I do not want to live in one. But we do go down quite frequently because we do have to to maintain the property and such. So when we're there, we're doing a lot of work. But when I am there, I'm usually having voice recorders running. I got things running even though I'm just working.
Right.
And I spent a lot of time talking to the spirits, especially when we bought it, because, they were kind of like my very first spirit box comment I got, and this was when I was actually doing a mini investigation before I purchased the home. I ran a spirit box, and there was a woman that said, "Who are you?" So it was all kind of weird and new to them. So I spent a lot of time, discussing and talking about things, and I had got EVPs of be quiet, I'm trying to sleep. So they kind of got sick of me rambling on sometimes.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I just spent a lot of time, and I think it gets more personable. That way, I think the more the time that I do spend down there, I'm getting more and more interaction. My husband actually saw a young girl one of the very last times we were down there because we were just busy working all day. But, we still interact while we're working.
Right. That's cool. So, do you think while you're there, you're becoming friends with the ghosts? They're becoming familiar with you, so they just kind of do their own thing? That's kind of neat.
Yeah, I think they do. I've been, when we first bought the house, we were getting some interaction, and then things kind of started to die down, and I had got one of those REM pod spares that would go off, and I had put him in the room, and I kind of explained to the kids, I was like, hey, I'm getting kind of sad you guys haven't been doing anything lately, and, I'll leave you more toys, and people start bringing you toys, but you got to let me know that you're here, and you just got to touch this bear. Just let me know. And then, later after I left the room, the darn bear went off for 2 hours straight. So they let me know, and then actually just recently, because we are doing renovations on the house, and I'm trying to bring it back to the 1900s. So I'm always interacting with, hey, what do you think you want this color? I try to let them make picks,
That's awesome.
We were I had decided to set up a poker game in the basement. And so I gotten all these coins from the 1900s and then a big gold coin. And, I kept shuffling, and I was, put a REM pod on the middle of the table, and I said, here, it's 5 cards stud, aces are wild, and then I kind of left, and then that REM pod kept going off from like 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., like not constantly, but it would go. And of course, being scientific, so I changed the battery. That wasn't the problem, even though it was a brand new battery to start with.
Sure.
Then I changed the pitch of the REM pod, and it still went off. And then I went and got a different REM pod altogether, and it still continued to go off. But the whole thing, too, during the time is I had one particular card that I had pulled to the side and put it at the edge of the table. And it wasn't hanging over the edge of the table, it was just right at the edge. And the whole night I kept saying, if you guys could please just push this one card off, I would so appreciate it. It means so much to me. And then that night at midnight, they pushed it off the table.
Wow.
So.
That's awesome. So one question here for you. I know you mentioned you're doing renovations. One thing I've learned too, listening to other podcasts and kind of doing investigation stuff here, is I've learned that people have experienced or like negative experiences when renovating a house. I hear that if there's a building that's notoriously haunted of spirits who live there or had a connection with that place, and once somebody starts converting it like into a hotel or whatever, it could make the spirits more active because of change in the environment around them. Have you experienced that at all?
Yeah, I think things are ramping up a little bit with our renovations. We actually we have one spirit. She's kind of cranky a lot, and she sounds like she smokes like 100 packs of cigarettes.
Oh, nice.
So she's very raspy. So we get her quite often, and it's usually negative comments. Like we were in the middle of ripping off the old wallpaper, and we got like a EVP of like, that's it. Like she was really mad.
I can imagine like if you're like changing like your grandma's house and she doesn't like it, kind of like that. Oh, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, you cut off for a second.
Awesome. Yep, sorry about that. For some reason, it's kind of messing up a little bit, but it comes back apparently. I'm not sure what's going on, but that's all right. Also, just so you know, I have my K2 EMF meter sitting here next to me. I always have it on when I'm doing a show just to see if anything comes up, because I have experience with just talking about the paranormal can make things happen. And right when you were talking about the wallpaper, it just lit right up, and then the sound cut out. Don't know if that means anything to you or not, but just a heads up.
Maybe she's trying to still say she's mad about that.
That could be. It's just a little real. I went to from green to red just for that segment, and once the sound came back on, it went back to green. So, whatever. Awesome. So I know you have teams come out. Do you do like teams, like investigations all year round in the house, or how does that work?
Yeah, we allow any paranormal group to come in to do private overnight paranormal investigations. So if people are interested, they can just contact us, and we can get a date set up for that. And I let them come in from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till noon the next day, and they're just there by themselves, and they have pretty much free reign to do any type of investigating that they'd like to do, and hope that they share some of the evidence, because we've gotten a lot of really good evidence collected from a lot of awesome teams that have been out there.
Oh, I believe that. I mean, if you've owned the place for over a year, and if you have multiple teams come out, I mean, you have to capture all kinds of awesome stuff. So, in this past year, what are some of like the more memorable stories of their investigations or from your personal investigations? Has anything like gone real crazy, or just something that's super evident? Like anything like that?
I think one of the really cool pieces of footage that somebody has shown me, it was a team called NOPS, N-O-P-S. It's like Northern Outer Paranormal. I don't want to screw it up, but it's just NOPS. And you can find that video actually on our Facebook page. But they had set up some equipment, and it was in our living room, kind of facing into the kitchen, so you were getting the kitchen doorway. And you actually seen like 2 full-size shadow figures run across through the kitchen. And you could like totally see like the head and their shoulders. So it's a complete outline of a person, like a shadow person.
Oh, wow.
And I have had other people tell me too that they have seen shadow people running through the kitchen. And a lot of people would be like, oh, well, maybe it's headlights, things like that, because I like to break things down and make sure that it's, it's really paranormal. It's not something created by the outside.
Yep, absolutely.
But I know how the house is situated, so there's actually no way that any headlights or anything could hit the windows at that angle to create the way that those shadow figures were running. So that was some really foolproof evidence to me on that, and which was really cool to see. And then I think the other one that really stood out was another team that had the SLS cameras. And like I said, we do have children in the home. And they had gotten, it was just like the total little stick figure standing by the piano. And then they had asked it to go sit in the chair. And it actually walked over and sat in the chair. And in the chair, they had a K2 meter and a REM pod, and it continued to go off while that stick figure sat in the chair. They asked it to wave at him, and it waved at him.
Oh, wow.
That was a really super cool piece of footage to see.
That is really cool. And so that's one of those things. Like, I like to act like I'm brave in these kind of situations. You know, I've been doing this podcast for a few months now, and I've been to pretty haunted places like Waverly Hills near Louisville and, like, the Ohio State Reformatory and that kind of stuff. But I'm pretty sure if something waved to me, I'd probably freak out a little bit. I can't lie. I have seen shadow people in Waverly Hills, and that was creepy enough in a room with like 20 people. So, like, in a very smaller venue, I would probably,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've only seen one shadow person, not at Boyd House. I was at a different bar that I investigated. I'd seen that, so that was kind of creepy. And then, funny with the SLS, we were actually at the Hartford County Jail over in Indiana, and we had set up the SLS cam, and I was, it was kind of down a hallway, and then there's nothing but all these jail cells behind me, and we were kind of like talking and demoing, like, oh, this is how it works, and they kept telling me, Jill, go a step farther back, and I'm like, you keep making me go in the dark by myself, I don't like this, and I kept going farther and farther back towards the cells, and then I could see the screen from the SLX camera that they had. All of a sudden, they'd seen a stick figure pop out of one of the jail cells behind me, and I just bolted. I just ran. I'm like, whoa.
Especially in a jail, you're not sure what kind of spirit that is. You know, if it was an inmate, if it was a guard, that matters.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So I know you said you've been a paranormal investigator for over 10 years. What places have you visited, and what kind of investigations have you done at those kind of places?
Oh my gosh, we've been pretty much. Well, I shouldn't say everywhere, but yeah, we've done like Waverly Asylum, the Peoria Asylum, which fortunately is now torn down. Thornhaven Manor, Whispers Estate, Bobby Mackey's, Villisca, Edinburgh Manor, which is one of my favorites. Gosh, there's just so many different. Randolph Infirmary. That one's a really good place too.
Oh wow!
But we've been to a lot of places.
No, that's awesome. So here's a question I try to ask everybody that comes on the show. In your opinion, you've been doing this for a long time now. What do you think makes a place haunted, or what keeps the spirits at those locations? Do you think?
I think it really depends on what place you're talking. And different histories. I think with all our stuff, I think everybody can kind of come to the conclusion we don't really know.
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, it's hard to say like why some spirits stay, why some spirits go, are others stuck. I think these are things that we're trying to figure out, and I think we have really good theories on them. So I think it's just kind of a mystery right now for everything.
Nope, absolutely. And that's just one of those things I like to ask, why things happen, because that's how I just go to a place, I'm like, well, why is this place haunted? And with places like Waverly, you can really tell when there's so much negative energy there. That's possibly something that can create that kind of environment, I guess. In other places, if it was a happy environment, that's where the spirits go to, because that's where they're at their happiest in their life, where they want to be, that kind of stuff. So yes, I just feel like, energy is a big part of that, if that makes sense in my opinion. I just think it's interesting to talk about. I don't know. But, well, that's fantastic.
Yeah, that makes sense, though.
Absolutely. I know you mentioned that the SLS cam, for those who aren't familiar, what does an SLS cam mean or stand for?
Actually, I'm not that savvy on that.
Oh, fair enough.
I just know it makes little stick figure people. So.
Oh, gotcha. So that's cool. I was looking to get like an infrared camera, to to do investigations and that kind of stuff. According to the internet, those are good to like show different temps and that kind of stuff. I guess I'm not all that technical either.
Yeah, we use a lot of the infrared camcorders, and we've had the full spectrum, but I didn't like the full spectrum very much, so we pretty much just use the infrared camcorders right now for filming.
Oh, fair enough. All right, awesome. So Boyd, Minnesota. Yeah, Boyd, Minnesota is where this house is. And so before you bought it, were you familiar with this house at all, or how did you come to the conclusion to buy it, or how did you hear about it? Like, what's the story there?
Well, actually, I was just looking for a haunted location. So I would just go on the MLS and just type in like what price range I was looking for and what year. And then I'd kind of scroll through, and if I'd get a feel for the house, I'd want to go take a look at it. There was just something about this particular house that just kind of kept calling to me. Like I like almost became obsessed with looking at photos of this house, honestly.
That's awesome.
And then I had went down there and did the mini investigation and got some responses. And then, because the REM pod went off within 8 minutes of me being there, and we had a couple of good spirit boxes. And it's hard. Like, what can you get when you're there for like an hour? You gotta kind of get what you get.
Right.
And then so there's actually a psychic medium that I have worked with before that I really trust, and had asked her what her thoughts were, and she had told me that there were 6 spirits living in the house, and now that I have been there and own it, we're kind of really confirming that there for sure is the 6. That she said there's a boy and a girl there, probably around 8, 9, 10. And we do get a lot of that information. And then she said that there's 2 women and a man, and we sure have proven that with the different keys that we've gotten. So, but what I thought was really interesting, which I didn't think about it at the time when she said it, but when I look back on it now, she told me the very first time that I sleep in that house, I'm going to hear the man come in through the back door, because he likes to garden. He comes in through the back door. So I hadn't even bought the house yet. So how she knew I was going to actually do that. So the very first night was all kind of, I'm like, ooh, I wonder when I'm going to hear what's going to happen. I was kind of really looking forward to it. And just kind of randomly, and it was around evening time. I don't know the exact time. But I had the basement door closed, and I was walking by it, and all of a sudden there was like a bam, bam, bam on the back of that door, and it was shook so hard. And, of course, I wasn't anticipating it, so I jumped like 10 feet in the air. But then I went back, and I opened the door, and I checked, and there's no wind flow. There's nothing that would have made the door rattle back and forth. And plus, it wasn't just a rattle. It was like somebody's fist pounding on that door. So I thought that was kind of pretty cool that she had said that, and that had happened for me.
Oh, absolutely. That is really cool. My wife is kind of like that. She can come in and say things like, for example, we were doing a little session the other night, and she claimed, or she knew that, we were talking to this spirit, his name was this, and here's why he's here. Just all gut feeling. I guess that would make her kind of like a medium. We've talked about that before on previous episodes. But it's always awesome when that's proven, if that makes sense. And they say that people don't believe in that kind of stuff, and then they say it, and then what they say happens, and it's just, boom, proven. It's a great feeling, I guess. Yep. That's awesome. Absolutely. All right, cool. So is there anything else that you want to say about the Boyd house before we wrap it up?
Let's see. Like I said, anybody wants to come and do an overnight investigation, just get a hold of us, because you won't be disappointed. You do have quiet nights, obviously. I've been to places where you go and you don't get anything for the whole night, but you might get an EVP. So, but for the most part, if you're looking for something to happen, as far as any objects being moved or getting voices or equipment interaction, this is a pretty hot spot to come and play.
That's awesome. Just a heads up, my wife and I may do that. We've been thinking about going around the country and for paranormal investigations and checking out known places and not known places. Do both. And so I know we both have always wanted to go to Minnesota, so that might be in our future going forward. Just a heads up. So you may hear from me again.
We'd love to have you out. It'd be fun.
Awesome. So again, check out Jill Shelley on Facebook at the Boyd House LLC, and her website at Croix Paranormal.com. And definitely check out her house. I read about it online. It's very interesting. I've seen pictures. I've heard some of the EVP that's on there, and it's definitely a pretty badass looking place. And I'm excited to go see it in person, so I'm probably going to. Alrighty, well, I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up. I really appreciate you being on the show again, and I'd love to have you back sometime and hear more about your experiences.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, give us a whole summer's worth, and we'll have a lot more stuff going down.
Oh, absolutely, I bet. And real quick, I'm out of curiosity, has this current pandemic affected your business at all up there, or how has that worked for you?
Everybody who had April rescheduled to a little bit later, and then now I think people are just picking back up just more because you're okay to travel,
right?
And be with people, and you're at the house by yourself, so you're your people. So,
that makes sense. That's good.
It's been really picking up a lot more now.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. I've been seeing on Facebook a lot of places like this have lost a lot of business, and it's just always sad to see that, especially in a field that you're really interested in, and it's just a lot of fun, especially now that it's getting nicer out, and people want to be outside and doing things that they're interested in. So awesome. Well, again, I appreciate you being on this show, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, and so that was Jill Shelley, again, from Croix Paranormal. Again, huge thanks for being on the show. I really enjoyed it. I always love hearing about haunted houses and that kind of stuff, and it's really cool to talk to somebody who actually owns a haunted house and puts on tours and that kind of stuff. So I mean that when I say today and I want to get out there. I really do want to go out there and check it out. That's one of our goals going forward, is to kind of go across the country and do live podcast episodes in some of these locations, and also do investigations, paranormal investigations in some of these places, and also just hang out, check it out. I like history stuff. I love going through old buildings and old towns and stuff like that. So definitely on my to-do list going forward. All right, I think that's going to go ahead and wrap up episode 14 of Paranormal Axetivities. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'm very excited to be going to my hometown of St. Mary's this weekend and getting ready to do that big episode. I'm hoping that pans out, and if it all goes well in St. Mary's, I'm going to go ahead and kind of start doing episodes like that in multiple small towns in Ohio, and maybe even eventually branching out from there, and keep that going. It just depends how successful that is, so hopefully everything goes well. If you guys are into professional wrestling, be sure to check out my other podcast, Regularly Scheduled Hostilities. We have pretty big news possibly coming up this week, so stay on the social media for that, or if you listen to this show after Wednesday or Thursday, you already have seen it. But yeah, check that out. Check out my buddy Josh. He's the co-host of RSH. He has his own show called The Boardroom, if you like sports, and that's always live on social media, on the Facebook page, and on alleverythingentertainment.com. Man, I've been doing podcasting for a few years now. You think I could actually talk into a microphone, but apparently I cannot. So yeah, so be sure to check out all of those shows. Check out alleverythingentertainment.com. Jesus Christ. And again, if you have any questions, concerns, send me an email at paranormalaxpodcast.com. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, all the social media. Again, find me on all of the podcasting platforms, and let's just keep learning together.